In 1970, Bobby Orr became the first defenseman to win the NHL's scoring race. He led the Boston Bruins to their first Stanley Cup in 29 years, and he was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. Orr was simply the best.
Somebody once wrote that a defenseman winning the scoring title was probably the equivalent of a pitcher leading the major leagues in baseball in home runs. And the fact that he could lead the attack, finish the attack, and just be the forward. He'd take over leading the attack.
I can remember so many games where he just carried it end to end, and all I had to do was park myself in front of the net and wait. And he would circle, make a couple of loops, do whatever you had to do, but he would find you and give you the puck, and you had it pretty well an open net. And I think that's one of the reasons I scored so many goals is because of Bobby Orr.
I had the ability to read Bobby Orr. I knew when he was going to break, where he was going to go, and I knew sooner or later he was going to give me the puck or score because he was that good. So I made sure I got myself in a position, and Bobby, if he was being checked, would get me the puck. I mean, he was, to me, the greatest defenseman that ever played this game.
In 1972, a Conn Smythe performance by Orr brought the Boston Bruins another Stanley Cup. While Orr was scoring points at a record-setting pace, his defensive play never suffered.
Some people have raised the argument that he was so offensive-minded. I mean, he was a guy who was winning scoring titles as a defenseman, who could skate faster than anybody else on the ice, who could shoot harder than anybody else on the ice. How could he be a defenseman? All I'm saying is that when he carried the puck up the ice, and if he happened to lose it at the other blue line, he was back there waiting for you when you were coming the other way. He was that good.
He went with the puck when he saw the opportunity, and it seemed to come along at least once a period. He was just flying down the ice and either setting up a goal or scoring one, or if he lost the puck, he'd be right back at his own blue line in an instant.
What a stop by Bobby Orr! You've never seen anything like that.
While superb skating was at the heart of Bobby Orr's brilliance, his fearless end-to-end rushes were often high-risk maneuvers. And in the inevitable collisions, it was Orr's knees that suffered the most.
What started the knee problems was in a game against the Leafs. He took incredible chances with his body. And the Leafs had a wily old defenseman named Marcel Pronovost, who was a master of the hip check. Pronovost cut him off along the boards, and instead of just taking the hit directly and keeping both feet on the ice, Orr tried to hurdle. And Pronovost's big backside put Orr's knee into the boards.
Bobby Orr was the type of player that wanted to play every game. He played injured. I've seen him with so many injuries where a lot of players would be out for a month. Bobby just would bandage it up, put ice on it, and go out and play. And he just pushed himself too hard. But that was the type of player he was.
You know, a player can go 20 years in the NHL and not have a knee injury, and he's very lucky. He was very unfortunate that he had so many procedures on his knees, not only one of them, but both of them. And how he was able to play in that marvelous, skilled way of his with all these knee problems is just beyond belief.
In 1976, knee problems sidelined Bobby for all but 10 games. But that summer, he would play through the pain in order to represent his country in the first ever Canada Cup tournament.
1976 Canada Cup. Bobby Orr was at the end of his career. His one knee was done for. He came to training camp and didn't practice a whole lot. Played in those games, and he was better on one leg than the rest of us on two. That's how great he was.
Like, you'd see him in the morning where he could hardly skate, he could hardly walk, his knees would be so sore. I don't know how he got himself out onto the ice. He'd get on the ice for the darn games and be the best player on the ice. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but it obviously took a big toll on his knees because he didn't play much after that, really. But it was a tremendous amount of courage to do what he did in 76.
I remember I was his roommate, and he had ice pack every time that he was off the ice in the room to be ready for the next day. And he was in bad shape, but he won the best player in the tournament. And it was unbelievable, and that's something that not too many guys would do. You know, hockey was his life, and he took it very seriously.
In 1976, after 10 seasons in Boston, Bobby Orr joined the Chicago Blackhawks. But knee injuries continued to plague him. For 3 seasons, Orr struggled to regain his form, but the damage was done.
I now know for sure that my leg cannot handle playing. I'm disappointed, but I am relieved. I would not want to go through the rest of my life thinking, well, maybe there was that chance. I now know I'm no longer able to play.
In a career that lasted more than 10 years, Bobby Orr won 8 Norris trophies, 2 league scoring titles, 2 Stanley Cups, 2 Conn Smythe trophies, and was 3 times named league MVP. After his 1978 retirement, he was immediately inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Later that season, the Boston Bruins retired his number 4 jersey.
It was very sad to see Bobby Orr's career end. He was a player that is so idolized by so many people, so many kids all over the world. Had the greatest name in hockey, I think, at that time. He was just outstanding. Probably one of the best, if not the best, defenseman ever to lace on a pair of skates. And to see his career end after 10 years was very sad. Very sad, and a big loss to the National Hockey League.
Bobby Orr, as an opponent, was a guy that I respected a lot for his talent, for the way he was off the ice. Very generous person, down-to-earth person, talent-wise, the greatest in my book. I know there's a lot of good defensemen today, but style-wise, Bobby is number 1, and he's still number 1.
The reason I would always think in my own mind that this was the best player I ever saw was because the game changed because of him. And I don't know of another player individually that's had that sort of effect.
You know, a lot of people ask me, who's the greatest hockey player in the world? And naturally, when they ask me, you know what, I'm going to say Bobby Orr. And I say Bobby Orr is the greatest hockey player who ever lived and whoever will live. He was like a shooting star. And I think that Serge Savard said it best. He said, there's stars, players, superstars, and then there's Bobby Orr. And Bobby Clark said, he's too good. He's got to go to another league.
When he got the puck, if he wanted to keep it, it seemed like it was a kid's game, and he could keep it as long as he wanted. He could do what he wanted with it, and he was so special and did so much and did it with grace and elegance and modesty. You know, I think that he's what all hockey players should try to be like, on the ice and off the ice. But he played it with so much class and dignity, and off the ice was, you know, a perfect team player and just did everything right, I think.
When I consider the fact that I played against some great players and saw some great players, I must honestly say that deep down in my heart, there's only one guy I got to put ahead of everybody, and that is Robert Orr, the greatest player that I have ever seen play. And I've often said this story, and maybe it's old hat, but I'm going to say it again anyways, and that is that if somebody better comes along that's greater than number 4, I hope the good Lord sees fit to keep me on this earth, because he will be something else.